Ladies and gentlemen and gamers of all varieties, welcome to Brawl King. I'm your host, Big Brain Energy, and I'd like to thank Mr. G Gaming for organizing what might be the most exciting PvP tournament this sector of Stars has ever seen. If for some reason you've never heard of Star Sector, don't worry. You should still be able to follow what's going on when we get to the action. But first things first, let me cover the rules for the competing fleets. For our 16 brave contestants, let's start out with what you can't do. You can't have more than 12 ships, you can't go over 100 deployment points, and you can't use Omega class weapons. On top of that, the Ziggurat and Guardian are banned. Any skills that reduce your fleet's deployment cost are also banned. So say goodbye to Derelict Ops and Support Dock. You're also limited to only 60 automated ship points. Now outside of those restrictions, you can basically do whatever you want. Every human ship can have an officer, every automated ship can have an AI core. You can have S-mods on everything, and you have access to every commander skill that's not banned. With these rules in place, we can expect smaller ships to be a lot more common. If I were you, I would be prepared to see a fair amount of frigate spam. Each battle is a simple best of 3. The first fleet to score 2 wins takes the victory and moves up in the tournament. But don't feel too bad if you lose in the first round. This is a double elimination tournament, meaning you're not truly out until you lose twice. Fighting your way through the losers bracket is going to be tough, but it's not impossible. You might still make a comeback and take first place in the finals. Speaking of our 16 brave contestants, the Burning Ones, Firecat, Ubernoob, Arthr, Grievous69, Seakeal, Idiopathic, RamenXD, Lortus, Pixicode, Uran92, Tranquility, Ymfah, GrumpyThumper, and Mudsson. The keen-eyed among you might have noticed that I am also in this tournament. When Star Sector is one of my favorite games, there's no way I'd pass on an opportunity like this. Up first in round 1, we have the Burning Ones versus Firecat. Before each round, we'll show you a quick preview of each fleet. If you want to know more about each ship, then feel free to pause and look over it in detail. The Burning Ones has opted for a simple monofleet. After all, you can never have too much of a good thing, and the Afflictor is certainly a good ship. On the other hand, Firecat concocted a mix of Atlases and Brawlers.
Round 1, fight!
And here comes the flight of the Afflictors. That is not a good thing to see if you're on the receiving end of those things. Especially not if I was an Atlas II pilot, because those, while they have a lot of DPS, they are glass cannons, and that frontal shield conversion leaves them very exposed at the sides to a potential phase ship attack. And it looks like they're taking full advantage of it right off the bat. That Atlas is not looking good. It's got a fraction of hull left. It's about to go down, and there it is. Just about what you'd expect from an Afflictor versus an Atlas Mark II. Unfortunately for Firecat, his fleet does not look prepared for phase ships. Even the Lion's Guard Brawlers are losing to the Afflictors in a straight 1v1, and the Atlases certainly aren't helping. I think that this is a pretty clean-cut victory for the Burning Ones. Even though the match isn't over yet, I think we can already tell who's winning this one. Another Atlas goes down. It's as simple as that. The Afflictors just need to clean up the remaining Lion's Guard Brawlers. Certainly not the variant I was expecting to see in this tournament. If anything, I was expecting to see Panther Brawlers, but Lion's Guard is a very unique choice. And fortunately for Firecat, it did not pay off at all. Those antimatter blasters and light Nifas are still tearing right through them. Afflictors are a very dangerous ship. If you are not prepared for them, they will make you regret it. At this point, it's a simple matter of cleaning up the remaining ships. The fight is already over. It's a question of whether or not Firecat can even score 1 kill against these Afflictors. This might be a perfectly clean sweep for the Burning Ones. That's the second to last Brawler. There's only 1 left, and I really don't think it has it in it. The shields are down, and that is the Brawler. Wow, that was a very one-sided battle. Goes to show what an Afflictor can really do.
Round 2, fight!
Well, Firecat, this is your chance to redeem yourself. I don't think you're going to be winning this one, but you can at least score 1 kill against these Afflictors. Those Atlases are facing the wrong way. It looks like they're trying to ball up, as the AI tends to do when faced with a large number of phase ships, but it's not really working out for them. Those exposed flanks are going to be exposed regardless. Frontal shield conversion was a bold choice for those Atlases, but it is really not paying off. Not that it would have made much of a difference, Those shields simply cannot stand the entropy amplifier from the afflictors combined with the light needler damage output. Those squalls might be very threatening to a high-tech ship, but these afflictors can just phase right through them. Not to mention that kinetic damage probably won't do a whole lot even if they do hit. I think I saw an afflictor tank a Gauss cannon from the front, still not breaking its armor. This is looking like a simple and clean getaway for the Burning Ones. Out of all the possibilities on my bingo card, 10 afflictors was not one of them, but it seems like it should have been because the Burning Ones has come up with a very simple but very effective strategy. If you go into an alternate dimension, the enemy can't hit you, and if you do that with every ship, you might just score yourselves 2 clean sweeps in a row. The Burning Ones moves up in the tournament while Firecat is knocked to the loser's bracket. Up next, we've got Ubernoob versus Arthr. Ubernoob is bringing another set of afflictors, this time very specialized in anti-shield damage, and there's not an antimatter blaster in sight. On top of that, he's got scarabs with a lot of burst lasers, potentially threatening to armor, but not so threatening to shields. Glimmer's also bringing a large set of burst lasers, but also an IR auto lance for that anti-hull damage. On the other hand, Arthr is bringing 2 sets of ramparts with safety overrides, short-ranged but very fast. Vanguards as well, also bringing safety overrides. It looks like he's going for a strategy that focuses on armor at close range with high speed, with the exception of one Hyperion, just in case he needs some shields.
Round 1, fight!
It looks like the Afflictors are taking a lead while the Afflictors trail behind, and in fact this battle seems to be running at ×2 speed, which suggests that it might take a little bit longer compared to the previous round. Perhaps not so one-sided. Well, so far it looks like the Scarabs are actually fast enough to kite and outrange the Vanguards. This is really unfortunate because those Vanguards are fairly durable as far as frigates go, but if they can't catch up to the Scarabs and put on some damage, they're just going to get kited to death. It doesn't matter how durable you are. If the enemy just kites you, you're done. Here we can see multiple Scarabs ganging up on one poor Vanguard, and unfortunately the Ramparts might be in a similar situation. Being a larger ship, normally they would be able to have longer range to make up for their lack of speed. But in this case he's gone for safety overrides, which can be very dangerous with the extra flux dissipation and the extra speed, but the limitation on your weapon ranges might be shooting him in the foot right now. The Scarabs will definitely take a long time to chew through all that armor and hull, but at the same time, it doesn't matter if they can never catch up to them. Here we can see the Scarabs dueling out with the Vanguards. This is probably going to be most of the battle. Now the burst lasers are primarily a point defense weapon, so you can see them shooting down all of the missiles that he's launching before turning their focus onto the ship itself. And here you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Those Devastators on the front end might do a lot of damage if they can get close enough, but they're never going to because the Scarab's temporal shell gives them the speed boost they need to maintain distance whenever it tries to close in. You can see the front half of its armor has been torn off. It's just a matter of chewing through that remaining hull. In fact, it looks like it has a Gamma Core, which might be an odd choice. You are allowed to have Alpha Cores in your ships. You don't need to limit yourself to Gamma Cores. Regardless, it looks like that's another one down. He probably needed to go Gamma Cores to fit himself under the 60 deployment point limit, if I had to guess. It looks like the Hyperion might be the last one standing for Arthr. Unfortunately, it's being relentlessly hounded by these Afflictors, running 4 Light Needlers, very useless against anything except shields, but the Hyperion is very, very fragile underneath its shield bubble. It teleports away, but it's still going to get caught by those Afflictors. They can catch up to it immediately, and that goes down. Not a clean sweep, but pretty close.
Round 2, fight!
Let's see if this one goes any better for him. Those Vanguards are taking the lead along with the Hyperion. One of them is already getting torn to pieces by those Scarabs like a pack of dogs. They are just relentlessly brutalizing them. While I did say that the Burst Laser is primarily a point defense weapon, it is well known that it has decent armor penetration, which especially gets boosted by the temporal shell mechanics due to the way that beam armor penetration is calculated. Increasing the time flow of your ship effectively increases their penetration as well, so the Scarab takes very good advantage of this. Now, of course, they do completely lack any kind of good anti-shield weaponry, but I guess that's why they're paired up with the Afflictors. can see that in this case, it's paid off for him because the enemy has mostly forgone shields in the first place. That Hyperion can tank burst lasers all day, the soft flux damage being able to be dissipated because it's soft flux damage. You can still dissipate it even while your shield's up. You would need something like the light needlers to do permanent damage to those shields, but unfortunately, it doesn't look like it matters. The Scarabs, this is a perfect example. They simply don't care. They're too fast, they're too agile, and they have too much range. Not a lot of range, but enough that they can stay safe relative to pretty much everything that Arthr has to throw at them. Yes, that Hyperion can teleport behind you, nothing personal, kid, but does that matter if it can't land a killing blow? That Scarab is just running circles around it. And I can see an Afflictor even finishing off a Vanguard with nothing but kinetic damage. That's meant for anti-shield purposes, but it looks like it was good enough in that case. Here you can see the Hyperion, despite being one of the fastest ships in the game, despite having a teleporter, it got kited for a very, very long time before finally taking out the Scarab. And this Scarab, you can see, is soloing this Rampart, which is really unfortunate. I do like the Rampart. It is a decent ship, but this is just not the right matchup and not the right loadout. It's trying to charge forward with its burn drive, but in the end, it's just not going to make a difference. I think we're going to see a repeat of last round. The real question is, how close is it? Is it only 2 ships? Or are we going to see more kills for Arthr? While the kill count doesn't really matter, it is there for bragging rights. There's the events, and what else is left? All the Scarabs are grouping up. What are they moving towards? It looks like the Hyperion, plus that one Vanguard with a sliver of health, is the last ship standing. The Vanguard teleports away, but unfortunately for it, every time it uses its teleporter, it has a brief window of vulnerability, and most ships might not take advantage of that, but beams do strike, at least the burst laser strikes virtually instantly, so every time it teleports, it's dropping its shields for a fraction of a second, and it takes damage. You can hear the teleport right then, and wow, he did score a lot more kills this time, but still, it looks like Ubernoob is the one moving up in the tournament, and Arthr is knocked to the loser's bracket. Up next, we've got Grievous69 versus Seakeal. Grievous's fleet is bringing Atlases once again, but this time he's not up against any Afflictors, so they might survive a little bit longer and get to show why they're so powerful. He's also got a single Rampart, this time probably with an Alpha Core, followed by Vanguards loaded up with Gorgons. DEM missiles are an interesting choice. We'll see if it pays off for him. He's also got 6 Centurions. That is a lot of frigates using damper fields to tank with their armor. On the flip side, Seakeal, he's bringing cruisers. He's bringing 1 Dominator with a lot of armor. Champions with Squalls and Tachyon Lances for that long-range fire support. And finally, a couple of Omens. I like Omens. He's also got a Scintilla, which is a very interesting choice. Flash Bombers, very dangerous, but it's odd to see that this is our first carrier.
Round 1, fight!
And here we go. The Atlases and the Ramparts are all moving forward in a big cluster. He's launching his DEM missiles. Hydras are probably there to try and distract enemy shield arcs, but in this case, it's probably not necessary. They don't have Omni shields. Those Gauss cannons still can put on a lot of damage from long range. The Atlas Mark II is the only ship with large ballistic mounts and accelerated ammo feeders. Ooh, that's a nice Reaper hit right onto that Rampart. It's completely reliant on its armor, so that's a big hit. But it looks like it's repairing. Its hull is actually going back up. He has elite combat endurance. The Dominator is in a pretty rough spot. It's taking Gauss cannons to the shield, and it looks like the Hellbore from that damn Rampart is actually enough, because this time it's not running safety overrides, but it is running full high explosive. Very deadly once their shields are maxed out. It's relying on the Atlases for that anti-shield damage, but so far it's working out for him. He is ripping those cruisers to pieces. That goes one of the champions. All that's left is one champion, the Scintilla, and it looks like there's still an Omen up in the top left as well. That Scintilla is a carrier. It really does not want to be right next to a Rampart, and there it goes. The champion is surrounded by, and it's getting picked apart by multiple frigates, as well as the sheer high explosive DPS of that Rampart. There it goes. still one Omen left in a 1v1 against a Centurion. And it looks like the matchup is fairly even. They're both having a fairly hard time doing permanent damage to each other. But here come the Gorgon missiles, and as you might expect, they're pretty good against frigates. They're good enough to finish it off. Very close to a clean sweep.
Round 2, fight.
Round 2. Let's see if he does any better. That was very, very one-sided in favor of Grievous 69. Well, he's already got a Centurion down. He's doing fairly good this time. The Rampart is taking all of those hits from the champion. Meanwhile, the Dominator is taking the hits from the Rampart. Which one is going to come out on top this time? This is very important. These are the central tanks for each fleet. So which one goes down first is very important. And in the left side, a champion has aggroed onto one of the Atlases and is not defending itself. Again, those things are very fragile. It needs to be at the back line. It can't be taking damage like this. And it looks like the champion took it out. The Dominator goes down first, but now the Rampart is left with only one Atlas to support it, and it's being flanked by both the champions. It's not in range, and the champions have their shields fully intact. It looks like the Rampart is actually in a lot of trouble here. It's a very powerful ship, but it's struggling to get through all of the EMP. And it goes down. Wow. It looks like the Atlas is now getting taken on by two champions. Well, we know how this goes. One champion was enough. Two of them is more than enough. Grievous 69 might be able to make a comeback if his frigates are able to hold the line, but I can't see any of them on screen. He's lost all of his major ships. He's still got Vanguards and Centurions. Still very durable frigates. They might be able to do something here. But those Tachyon Lances, when boosted by the high energy focus of the champion, is very brutal. The armor punch they have is looking like it's very rough. It looks rough. The frigates are going down one at a time. And after a very, very, very one-sided first battle, Seakeal actually manages to take game 2. What is even left at this point? Yeah, there's just the Centurion, and once again it's in a 1v1 against an Omen on the flanks, but I think this is the last ship. Well, that is certainly unexpected for the first round to be so one-sided that Seakeal only scored 1 kill. It looks like he's taking round 2. And this time it was fairly one-sided.
Final round. Fight!
Alright, well, both of them have had very dominant victories. It seems like this matchup is very swingy. What the AI aggroes onto is extremely important. If those champions can take out that Atlas early on, that might be a decisive victory for Seakeal. But it looks like they're not aggroing onto him. They're being pushed back. The threat of all the incoming ships is too much, and the AI is backing off. We can see that once again the Dominator is taking the center line. Those Atlases are both aggroed onto it. Meanwhile, the Rampart is shooting at something else entirely. That high explosive damage is not going to do a lot against that Omen. It's doing a good job distracting it. Here comes some Reapers, once again taking a massive Reaper to the side, and now it's aggroed onto the Dominator, which is mostly reliant on its armor and shields. So that Hephaestus Assault Gun combined with the Hellbore is going to put on a lot of DPS. The Atlases are also aggroed onto it, and once again, it looks like the champions are... it looks like they're not aggroing onto the Atlases, they're aggroing onto the Rampart, which is exactly where Grievous 69 wants them, because that is the main tank for his fleet. The Dominator goes down, and both the Atlases are still intact, meaning that they're still providing massive amounts of fire support. It's starting to look like this is swinging in Grievous's favor. Seakeal is being forced into a corner. He doesn't have his mainline tank anymore. The champions are mostly spec'd for long range, and they have decent durability. The Dominator was more durable, and it did not stand. That one is overloaded. The Hellbores are hitting. The Locust is chewing through the hull, and there it goes. The carrier is in front, and it's overloaded. It looks like it's going to go down any second now. There it goes, and the champion is soon to follow. At this point, I think we can pretty clearly say Grievous 69 is taking this round, although it was a lot closer than the last two. A clean sweep. Grievous 69 moves on to the next level of the tournament, while Seakeal is knocked down to the loser's bracket. Up next, we've got Idiopathic versus RamenXD. Here we've got what look like Medusas with safety overrides, a high-tech ship, a high-tech destroyer with a lot of mobility. In fact, they've got converted hangars with talons as well, so they're also acting as carriers in a sense. He's supporting them with omens, a good choice, I might add. They've loaded up with missiles on those omens, some of them with reapers, some of them with sabos, and then also centurions with safety overrides. It looks like he's all in on the safety override plan. Meanwhile, RamenXD is bringing Hyperions with safety overrides, glimmers with safety overrides. Ladies and gentlemen, this is looking like the battle of the safety overrides. And a Tritachyon brawler of all things. Once again, not what I was expecting.
Round 1, fight!
So at the end of the day, this is looking like the battle of the safety overrides. Which ship uses it better? Is it the Medusa? Larger but slower. Its face skimmer has multiple charges but only goes a short distance, while the Hyperion goes a much further distance but has a longer cooldown on its ability. They're both using similar weapon loadouts, so you can hear the heavy blasters thunking away. But one advantage that the Medusas have here is they did bring talons. Now that does increase the deployment cost of each of them, but they're still under the cost of the Hyperion being an experimental ship. The talons are one of the weaknesses of the Hyperion. While it does have 360-degree shields, it has no point defense, meaning that in order to shoot them down, it has to turn all of its guns to face them. This is exactly what you don't want, because it means it's not shooting back at the Medusas, giving them a one-sided advantage, and so far it looks like it's working out extremely well for Idiopathic, because the Medusas are still intact, meanwhile the Hyperions are going down. We can see some ships running out of peak performance time. This means that their performance in combat is going to start degrading very soon. That's one of the downsides of safety overrides. But in the end, I don't think it's going to matter. This battle is running up the clock, and it looks like he's running out of time. You can hear the machine guns clinking away against that shield. The Centurion is doing surprisingly well against a ship almost 4 times its value. Despite the Hyperion being one of the favorite for a lot of players for its ability to just teleport all over the map and move around at high speed with high DPS in a small package, it looks like in this case, Idiopathic has a more comprehensive strategy. The addition of those talons was a good call, although without them, I'd wonder if the Medusas would still win. But I guess in this case, it doesn't matter. That's a single loss.
Round 2, fight!
Let's see if things are any different from the flip side. Once again, the talons are swarming over those things, not doing a whole lot of damage to their shields, but at least distracting the AI, because Vulcans will eventually chew through their shields, so they do have to pay some attention to them. And that time that they spend shooting at the talons is time not spent shooting at the Medusas. Here we can see one of the Dragonfires going off, but missing a little bit. It looks like the Hyperion is hounding that Centurion and then running away. Okay. The Medusas are coming in 2 flavors, one of them with safety overrides and high DPS weapons. The other one actually doesn't have safety overrides. Instead, it's going for a long-range support loadout with ion beams and auto lances. And it looks like it's working out extremely well. The EMP damage is able to arc through shields when you use an ion beam. It's a very specialized weapon, and in this case, it's keeping that brawler under a lot of pressure, and the fighters are also pressuring it, and the Centurion manages to score the kill. That Hyperion is surrounded, and it teleports away, but runs right back in, and it's not good enough. It goes down. That Glimmer is soon to follow. I don't expect it to last very long against this swarm. It's got nothing but a heavy blaster. No, it could mount point defense, but they chose not to, and in this case, it looks like that was the wrong call. There's another Dragonfire, but once again, the Medusa's able to teleport out of the way. That Hyperion is not going to last long. Is there even anything left? He's still got one. It's being surrounded by Omens, it's being surrounded by Medusas, it's being surrounded by Talons. In the end, it seems like the better swarm fleet was Idiopathic. 3 kills. Alright, Idiopathic moves on to the next round of the tournament, and RamenXD is locked down to the loser's bracket. Up next we have Lortus versus Pixicode. Here we can see an Onslaught 14, a very popular ship. This one is shield shunted, so no shields, all in on the armor plan. It's even got 3,000. It's supported by 2 Afflictor pirate variants, a lot cheaper but slightly less powerful than the regular Afflictor. He's also got his own set of omens, plus a monitor well famed for being an unbreakable but also unthreatening ship, as well as 6 glimmers with safety overrides. On the other hand, Pixicode has 2 onslaughts of her own, this time focusing more on shields, only got 2,000 armor despite being the same ship, but with Omni shields and Hardened shields, plus triple Storm Leader, it could be very threatening.
Round 1, fight!
Pixicode makes the bold choice not to include a number of frigates to support her capital ships, instead going for a carrier, likely hoping that the Thunder Swarm will be able to take out the enemy frigates. So far, they have taken out 1, and those Storm Needlers are very effective against frigates. There goes another one. But with the supporting effect of the Entropy Amplifier from those Pirate Afflictors, her onslaughts are going to take more damage. On top of that, once again, they only have 2,000 armor compared to Lortus, also known as Arthr, who has 3,000. Now, he doesn't have shields on his. But at the same time, it looks like the Thunders are not killing the frigates fast enough. They are getting around the onslaughts, and while the Omni Shields are protecting them from flanking attacks, there's always a question of how long that can last. Now, the Mora itself is very durable, but it is under direct attack from multiple frigates. Let's see how long it can hold out. Oh, and it looks like the onslaught goes down after an overload. That is unfortunate. Those Reapers, very threatening. The AI does not drop its shields, and sometimes that means it's going to overload when it sees them coming. Now the Mora is completely unsupported at this point and surrounded by a large number of enemy ships. I do not see it lasting very long under these circumstances. That just leaves 1 onslaught for Pixicode, and that is not what you want to see. It's chasing the monitor. Ouch. That is about the last thing you would hope for in this situation. As you can see, even against the incredible DPS of 2 Storm Needlers, it just sits there, and it just don't care. Shield Shunt is a hell of a drug. And now this onslaught, while it is very dangerous, all in on that kinetic damage with the combination of Storm Needlers and Sabos, I don't think it's going to last. The Frigate Swarm was able to take out the other 2 ships. There's no reason it can't take out this one. And if that wasn't enough, here comes the onslaught. If we can get those Reapers in, this will be a very quick game over. Yeah, once again, there's the overload. Kaboom. Let's see how many kills she scored. Not entirely one-sided. She did take out like half of the frigates.
Round 2, fight!
The Storm Needlers are short range, but they're very, very good against frigates, mostly reliant on their shields. The Storm Needler can burn through their armor and hull because it's so fragile. And here we can see the Sabos just slamming into those shield arcs and demolishing those glimmers. The support from the Thunders, this might be possible, but it's always a question of, it looks like that 1 onslaught is once again aggroing onto the monitor. This is not good for Pixicode. The shields are maxed out on that onslaught. It can't block a whole lot more damage. It's going to flicker its shield arc to try and squeeze out as much durability as possible. But once again, it's being flanked. It's not killing the frigates fast enough. The Entropy Amplifier is increasing the damage it takes. And at the same time, Lortus's onslaught is able to close the distance. And now it's focusing on the Mora, so it's buying a little time for Pixie's onslaught. But it might be too late. It's looking very damaged. The Afflictors and the Omens might be able to take it out themselves. It's got only a sliver of hull left, and its Flux is maxed out. And there it goes. The Glimmer takes the last shots. That Mora is held out against the onslaught, but it's looking like it's on its last legs. There it goes. And once again, one of Pixie's onslaughts aggroed onto the monitor, which is exactly what you want of your Lortus, and exactly what you don't want of your Pixie. Wow, it actually managed to kill the monitor. This is almost unheard of. I guess that's what happens when you have a high DPS ship like the Onslaught kitted out for heavy anti-shield damage. It did manage to kill it, but honestly, I think it still did its job. It still distracted the Onslaught for the majority of the battle, which means that Lortus has remained mostly uncontested. Now, in this 1v1, it does look like Lortus's is more damaged already, and without any shields, it is going to take continuous damage, while Pixie's, in theory, could regenerate its shield by venting. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like she's going to get the chance. It's completely isolated, and now the enemy frigates are coming in, and they're closing out. Completely unsupported at this point. There's the Reapers, and there's the kill. She still scored half of the frigates, but she still loses. So Pixicode is knocked down to the losers bracket, and Lortus moves on to the next round of the tournament. And next up we have Yoran 92 versus Tranquility. Looks like Yoran is going for a very safety overrides heavy fleet with 7 Sunders all kitted out with safety overrides. They are glass cannons, but they do have a lot of DPS. He's also got his own pair of reflectors, and with the remaining points he was able to squeeze in a little kite. On the other hand, Tranquility is going for another safety override fleet, this time with Omens and Hyperions, leaning a lot more on the Omens and the Afflictors rather than going heavy on the Hyperions like we saw earlier. These ones have double heavy blaster and jackhammer. Let's see if that pays off better than the other build.
Round 1, fight!
Now, those safety override on those Sunders is an interesting choice. The Sunder is a very, very high DPS ship relative to its cost. But it, once again, similar to the Atlas Mark II, it is something of a glass cannon. It's not known for its durability. And it looks like we can see that in action right here. It looks like the Hyperions and the Omens have no problem outmaneuvering it. Its hard point for its main gun is coming down to be a big weakness for it because it can't actually get its gun on target. Its engines are constantly being assaulted by the EMP emitters from the Omens, meaning that its hard point is constantly facing in the wrong direction. It's not even able to shoot back, and it looks like there goes another Sunder. They're getting cleaned out one after another. It doesn't matter if you do a lot of damage if you can't get your guns on target. It looks like one of the Afflictors is almost dead, so they are actually taking some damage. It looks like, yep, there it is. It triggered Phase Anchor, and it's gone. But this is the last Sunder. So while Yoran did get a couple kills here and there, it looks like it wasn't good enough. And Tranquility takes the first round with a very dominating display.
Round 2, fight!
Let's see if Yoran can do any better in round 2, but looking at how strong things were in the first round, I doubt it, but we've seen it before. We've seen it when Seakeal took a game off of Grievous 69. That was very surprising after how much he lost in the first round, so theoretically it's possible. But it doesn't look like anything dramatic is happening just yet. The Sunders are actually getting their guns on target, but not long enough to actually burn through the shields. Oh, it looks like up here the swarm of Omens is torn through some of the Sunders already. And the remaining Sunders have been holding out against the Afflictors and the Hyperions. But now that they're being swarmed by the Omens, it might be lights out. Unfortunately, the best that we can say is that maybe Yoran did better than the first round. Maybe he got more than one kill. But I don't think he's coming out of this one the victor. Afflictors are good, but they can only go so far. And it looks like they're not going far enough. In fact, both players have Afflictors in this case. A very popular choice this tournament. It is a good ship, which is probably why it's getting nerfed in the next patch, but I'm surprised to see this many so far. Looks like, once again, that's only one kill for Yoran. And it looks like Yoran is knocked down to the losers bracket and Tranquility moves on. Up next, we've got Big Brain Energy versus Ymfah. That's right, this is my fleet. I've opted to deploy a Paragon, a very bold strategy if I do say so myself. This thing takes up more than half of your deployment points, supported by Omens and a single Afflictor. I was really banking on the Paragon being a worthwhile pick given it is the most expensive ship that I've seen so far in this tournament. Meanwhile, Ymfah bringing 5 Griffins. Honestly, I'm surprised it took so long.
Round 1, fight!
Because the Griffin is famous for having the fastest clear time against late game enemies, it brings an incredible amount of firepower, and look at that! Wow! Oh my god, that is a lot of harpoons. I mean, that's exactly what the Griffin should be doing according to its reputation, and we can see one of the Omens takes a harpoon, but it just barely survives because it slipped past its shield. One of them was maxed out on Flux, and it still managed to just barely slink away. The Paragon itself not taking a lot of damage. That's what Fortress Shields can do for you. 90% damage reduction in exchange for shutting off your weapons turns out is a good strategy, and we can see that the small slots on the Griffins have more or less run out, meaning that the first wave is dealt with. They've only got the mediums and the large, and it looks like the Paragon was actually able to close the distance and kill one of the Griffins. In the bottom left, we can see the Afflictor is flanking and taking out one of the Griffins. Meanwhile, the Paragon is moving on to Griffin number 2. Wow, that was like an entirely different game, and the Paragon takes out one, and the Tachyon Lance snipes the other one, stealing the kill from the Afflictor. That felt more like a tower defense than Star Sector. Oh my god. At the end of the day, the Griffin is a very powerful ship, and I'm honestly surprised this is the first time we're seeing it. But in the end, it looks like my strategy was able to hold out. The Omens, with their strong shields and small target profiles, were mostly able to stay intact, and the Paragon's Fortress Shield let it weather the storm. I don't think I even need to mention the Afflictor. It can just dodge through. While the strategy is powerful, it doesn't seem like it's well suited to dealing with phase ships, unless they can fire so many missiles. They just have to stay phased until they run out of capacity. It looks like I take round 1, and it's a clean sweep.
Round 2, fight!
Here we go, round 2 from Ymfah's perspective. This is the massive harpoon swarm. There's one Omen right up at front. All of them are targeted right onto it. And despite high explosive damage doing half damage to shields, it's enough. They managed to break it, and in fact, they took out 2 Omens already. This is already going a little bit better for Ymfah, but is it good enough? Can they break the Paragon? At the end of the day, that's the big question. The Afflictor is debuffing that one Griffin, and the Paragon's able to blast it to pieces in a couple of seconds. We can see that once again the Afflictor is going after one of them in the top left, while the Paragon takes on 3 of them. It's at half flux, and the Afflictor takes out the Griffin, but it decides to get way too close, and it dies in the death explosion. That's another kill for Ymfah. And the Paragon is nearly maxed out on flux. Well, there's 3 Griffins left, and there's not a lot of support. There's only 3 Omens left. One of the Griffins goes down, and wow, that is some perfect flux management from that officer on the ship. He doesn't let a single harpoon get past and touch the armor of that thing. Perfect usage of dropping its shields at opportune times and using Fortress Shields to mitigate as much damage as possible. The Paragon is venting, and now it's reset its shields. It is perfectly ready to go all over again. An Omen takes out one of the Griffins with an antimatter blaster, and it looks like there's just one left. Not quite the clean sweep of the first round, but still a very good showing. That Paragon did in fact pay off. And it looks like I'm moving on to the next round, while Ymfah is dropped to the loser's bracket. Up next, we have GrumpyThumper versus Mudsson. It looks like he's got Eradicators with safety overrides and shield shunts. That's close range, and once again, the Mora also safety overrides and shield shunts. The Enforcer follows suit. It looks like it's also got safety overrides and shield shunts. Following that, it's got Kites. Very heavy on the armor, no shields, all safety overrides, all Reapers. On the other hand, Mudsson, this thing is an absolute monstrosity. What is that Eradicator? Following that, we've got a Lion's Guard Hammerhead with 4 antimatter blasters. Not much better, but the Afflictor is looking a lot more standard. Following that, an Omen, once again, looking fairly standard. And lastly, we've got a monitor, but it's invested in capacity instead of vents like you would expect.
Round 1, fight!
This is going to be a very interesting battle because, well, GrumpyThumper, despite his name, has not actually brought any thumpers. He's all in on the safety overrides, he's all in on the shield shunt, but it looks like the Eradicator doesn't care because it brought mining blasters, which have a portion of their damage ignore the damage reduction from armor. So even if you have a Mora that's stacked up to the brim with armor, it's still going to find a way through. Now, that Executor will max out its flux, firing all of those weapons very quickly, but it looks like they're not applying enough pressure. You can see right here, yes, I was right. The Eradicator's not able to apply enough pressure to actually punish the Executor for maxing out its flux with its weapons. I mean, that Afflictor's not even phasing to dodge those Reapers. It knows it doesn't need to. Wow. That Eradicator is a monster. It should not be able to survive if it's actually pressured by anything, but unfortunately, with all of his eggs in the safety override basket, and all relying on armor when he's brought mining blasters, it looks like GrumpyThumper is getting very punished for his fleet choice. In fact, Mudsson has brought a similar set of supporting frigates that I have.
Round 2, fight!
The main difference is swapping out one Omen for one monitor, which, I'll be honest, that's a good call. If I were you at home, that's what I would recommend. And it looks like that Mora is getting alive. Okay. You couldn't die dramatically while I was narrating? Well, whatever, it's fine. You're gonna die now. Die! Explode. Wow, that was really cool that I got the timing right on that one. That Hammerhead is a joke. Why does it have a Lion's Guard Hammerhead with 4 antimatter blasters is not what I expected to see in this tournament. And it's also got Escort Package, which unfortunately you aren't actually able to give your fleet orders. The only thing you can choose is the personality of the officers piloting the ships, so Escort Package is probably not getting a lot of use because it needs to stay near the Executor, and you're not able to leash it to it with an escort order. But luckily for Mudsson, it doesn't look like that matters. It looks like he is well positioned to just brutalize the ships GrumpyThumper is throwing at him. That one Omen is distracting all of these ships because, unfortunately, safety overrides, once again, those Eradicators are fast, but not fast enough, and the short range means they actually can't really pressure that Omen. It distracted like 5 ships and dragged them to the bottom of the map. And that was more than enough to let the rest of the fleet get cleaned out. GrumpyThumper, it looks like his fleet is getting torn to pieces. Despite some potential design flaws in Mudsson's fleet. It looks like he comes out on top, so I can't talk trash. If it works, it works. That's a clean sweep. Mudsson is moving on to the next round, and GrumpyThumper gets knocked to the loser's bracket. But don't go away just yet. Let's get to round 1 of the loser's bracket. And here in Purgatory, we can see all 8 of the people who dropped down to the loser's bracket. And all of the people who won still effectively have a second life. First up, we've got Firecat and GrumpyThumper. These are going to be the first match of the loser's bracket.
Round 1, fight!
Alright, all of these fleets lost their first battle. Let's see if they can do any better in their second. Somebody's got to come out the winner. We just saw GrumpyThumper with his safety override fleet, and at the beginning of the game we saw the Atlases with the Brawlers. Let's see if they can do any better. Now those Atlases are heavily specialized into anti-shield damage with double Squall and double Gauss Cannon, so against a safety override fleet like this with shield shunts, they're not doing a whole lot. They're relying entirely on the hit strength of those Gauss Cannons being relatively decent, but it's still going to take them a very long time to kill this Mora. At the same time, the Lion's Guard Brawlers, again, Ion pulsers don't have the best anti-armor damage, but they are able to dish out a ton of EMP, which is going to keep them offline and keep them not functioning. This one brawler is getting cornered by the Enforcer and a kite. It looks like once they close the distance, they actually are able to put out enough damage to break the brawler. But the brawler is also able to kill the kites. It looks like it's more about local superiority rather than one side having a severe dominant advantage. You can see that Eradicator almost killed the brawler. It just barely manages to slip away. And it dishes out so much EMP damage that the Eradicator is more or less not able to continue, but the Enforcer finishes the job. It's hard to tell who's exactly winning at this point. On screen, we're seeing a lot more from GrumpyThumper, but who knows what's going on off screen. There's plenty of ships left as far as I'm aware. We're not seeing too many on the kill counter. They're just chasing after that brawler, and it is just continuing to back up because it knows it doesn't stand a chance. See here, we've still got the two Atlases. They have not died. One thing I haven't mentioned yet is that these Atlases do have converted hangar with wasps for point defense rather than relying on regular weapons. It hasn't been super relevant so far, but with all of those Reapers flying around and Cobras, they could potentially be the difference between a dead Atlas and a living one, but in this case it looks like it doesn't matter. The more it goes down without putting much of a fight. And you're back down at the bottom of the map. This Eradicator is still trying to kill this Lion's Guard brawler, but it's not able to. It's just putting out too much EMP damage, and I don't think they've S-modded their repair units, so they're not repairing fast enough. Here, they might be able to corner this one. Yep, with two ships, they are able to sandwich it, and the AI is not able to figure out how to get out of that situation. But if you've got one Eradicator surrounded by all of the Lion's Guard brawlers, I don't think it's going to be able to move for a long time. They are going to take a while to kill it. Their hit strength isn't high enough to just shred its armor, but given enough time and given enough EMP, they can get the job done. And here we can see exactly the same thing playing out. There's a strong local advantage here, but I think these are the last two ships for GrumpyThumper, which might mean that Firecat, after a devastating loss in the Burning Ones in the very beginning of this tournament, it looks like he can score a win. That Atlas is coming in and finishing the job. Let's see if they can finally... There it is. There goes the Enforcer. He takes round 1. Only 3 kills.
Round 2, fight.
Despite how long that fight was, GrumpyThumper only managed to get the 3 kills we saw on screen. That kite goes down immediately, and those Reapers are just not hitting anything. The Brawlers are too agile. They're simply able to dodge. Ideally, you'd be using Reapers against heavier targets, but in this case, a mostly frigate fleet is mostly able to dodge them without issue. And another kite goes down. Here we can see the Atlases again. That Eradicator is really close. It should be able to demolish that Atlas in seconds, but because of the EMP from the Lion's Guard ships, it just doesn't have anything to shoot with. And so while it is taking a very long time for Firecat to destroy those ships, GrumpyThumper isn't able to take advantage of his shield-shunted durability. And as a result, he is getting punished. The Eradicator goes down, and the Mora is maybe soon to follow. Yo, of course, using the term soon very loosely because this thing is still very durable, and Firecat still does not have the right weaponry for this kind of matchup. Aside from having large amounts of EMP, you would really want a lot of high explosive damage that he just doesn't have. So it's going to take a while, but it looks like regardless, he's still going to win. There's another Mora driving straight up to that Atlas. It's still not firing its Typhoons, either because they're EMP'd or just doesn't think it has a good shot. And it's tanking all of those Gauss Cannons. Again, kinetic damage, but out of all the kinetic weapons, the Gauss Cannon does have pretty good hit strength. We're going to be here for a while, folks. Those Cobras just getting absolutely devoured by the Ion Pulsers. They don't stand a chance. And there, they finally put it to bed. The Mora goes down. All that's left is a couple of, well, an Eradicator and an Enforcer. Eradicator is gone. It's just the Enforcer. It tried firing its Reapers, but I think one of them hit. Not enough to break through the shields, though. And this is why shield shunts can be a very risky strategy. Unless you've got a lot of repair and a lot of EMP resistance, your opponent might just shut you down even without the high explosive damage. Looks like GrumpyThumper is eliminated from the tournament, and Firecat lives to see another day. Next up, we've got Arthr versus Ymfah. Same fleets as before.
Round 1. Fight!
Not that you can change them, of course. We all went in knowing that our fleets would be locked in from the start, and we all went in blind, not knowing what everyone else was doing. And it looks like, in this case, the Harpoons are scoring a lot more kills because those Vanguards do not have shields. They're entirely reliant on armor. Boosted by damper fields, they can last a decent amount of time, but that's a lot of Harpoons. The Griffin, in this case, you do have to use a little bit of a trick with the AI, linking all of the Harpoons into one fire group, forcing it to fire all at once. Otherwise, it's a way too conservative, but Ymfah knows this. He knows how to use them. And this is why we're seeing a lot of Harpoons coming out right off the bat. And even with double Devastators able to shoot down a lot of the missiles, it's just not enough. The Rampart goes down. I think the Hyperion might be the last ship standing. It's able to teleport away, but it's not far enough. The missiles are closing the distance. That's an overload. A clean sweep for Ymfah.
Round 2. Fight!
Let's see if it goes any different this time. That's a lot of Harpoons, and once again, they're cleaning up the Vanguards right at the start of the fight. The Hyperion could potentially be threatening if it teleports behind them, but it's just choosing not to. Maybe it's too scared of one of the Harpoons sneaking past its shields in the brief window where it's vulnerable, but either way, it's not getting a whole lot done right now. The Vanguards are going down one after another. They have basically no defense against this swarm of Harpoons. The Rampart, it does have Devastators at the front, but it looks like they're just not good enough. The hybrid offense and defense that Devastators provide is simply not good enough in this situation. The Griffins score another one. You can see the Devastator, it's shooting down some of the Harpoons, but it's still taking some of them. The Hyperion is closing the distance. It is actually getting some guns on target. The shields on that thing are already pretty close to maxed out. That Griffin might be vulnerable. You might actually be able to kill this one. A Vanguard comes in from the side. The Griffin's still maxed out on its shields. A Hyperion is coming up behind it. It teleported around. It gets some good shots, but still not enough. It's still over half hull. And the Hyperion goes down. The Rampart was pressuring it for a second, but switched targets, and it looks like it's gone too. They did get more damage onto the Griffins than last time, but regardless, they didn't kill it. It's still a clean sweep for Ymfah. Up next, we've got Seakeal versus Uran 92. This is the Dominator and Champion fleet up against the Sunder fleet.
Round 1. Fight!
Now, the Sunders did have a lot of trouble against a small mobile fleet made up of lots of fast ships. It had a hard time getting its auto-pulse laser on target against all these cruisers. Let's see if it can do better. Yes, there are still Omens here, but in this time, they're the ones who are outnumbered instead of the other way around. That Dominator actually managed to land 2 Reapers right onto one of the Sunders. That was very impressive. I would expect it to be able to dodge, but in this case, it looks like the Dominator was better at aiming. The Afflictor's trying to harass the Champions. They're having a hard time with it, but beam weapons are good at pressuring phase ships. The continuous damage keeps them in phase and forces them to play very defensively. That Dominator's maxed out on Flux, and here comes a Reaper from the side, here comes a Reaper from behind. Both of them get shot down, It's surrounded by Sunders, but it seems to be holding its own. Another Reaper. That's another Reaper shot down. That's, what is that, 5, 6? That's a lot of Reapers getting shot down. This one, I think, got through, and I think it stripped off some of the armor on the front, which means that those auto pulse lasers can potentially do a lot of hull damage. There it goes. You're starting to see another Reaper hit. It looks like the Dominator is finally buckling, and it breaks. The champion was able to kill one of the Sunders, but now it's being swarmed by 2 of them. There's 2 Sunders chasing after an Omen. One of the Sunders looks like it flamed out. That champion's in an awkward spot where it's got a Sunder. It killed the one in front of it, so now it doesn't actually need to get flanked by the other one. This one, on the other hand, has not killed one of the Sunders, so it is getting flanked, and it did take a Reaper. Now these champions are built mostly for long range. These Sunders are built for short range, and it looks like the short range build is winning. Now this Sunder is definitely going down. We've still got one champion, we've still got the carrier, and we've still got both the Omens for Seakeal. Huron 92 has maybe only 2 Sunders left. I'm not seeing any markers on the edge of the map. Yeah, it looks like these are these are the last 2 Sunders. The Flash Bombers take out one of them. The other one is facing the wrong way. The EMP damage really got to that one.
Round 2, fight.
That was very strongly in favor of Seakeal. You only lost the Dominator and one other ship. Let's see if Huron can do any better this time. Seakeal's battle against Grievous was very volatile. He did when either player won, it was a very dominating display. It's possible that Huron could make a comeback, although we haven't seen something like that yet in this tournament. It is still possible. The Sunders, they pounced onto that champion. Wow, that was a very early kill against that champion. The Dominator is mostly being ignored this time. In the first round, the tank of the fleet was just drawing all the attention. This time, it looks like the champion got killed. The carrier got killed. This is not looking good for Seakeal. That champion is isolated. It did dodge the 2 Reapers, and it is supported by an Omen, but it overloaded to 1 Sunder. I don't think it's going to last much longer. There it goes. At this point, the Omens are still standing. I think the Dominator is still standing. Yes, it is, but it's isolated, and now the Afflictor's getting to it. The Reapers are landing. It's not going to last much longer now, is it? As soon as the Afflictor decides it's done dancing back and forth, the double anti-matter blast shot sealed the deal, and once again...
Final round. Fight!
Once again, Seakeal's fleet is showing that it is very volatile. Against Grievous, it was whichever fleet won by a large margin. And in this case, it's the same thing against Huron. It looks like Seakeal's fleet is heavily dependent on the Dominator aggroing a lot of ships and tanking them while the champions get to work. And in this case, it looks like he's getting exactly what he wants. A lot of these Sunders are focused on that Dominator, and it's shooting down all of the Reapers. Again, very impressive. Not letting a single Reaper through, but how long can it keep this up? It looks like the carrier gets taken out despite the Dominator being right there. Now the Reapers are hitting. Now the Dominator is down. All that's left are the Omens and the Champions, and those are very good ships. Can they take out the remaining Sunders? The Afflictor is closing the distance. It's distracting the Omens. It fires a Reaper, which goes nowhere. Those antimatter blasters hit the Afflictor, and it's gone. But luckily for Huron, they do manage to close in on the champion, and they do manage to score another kill. It looks like there's plenty of Sunders left, and still one Afflictor up against 2 Omens and a single champion. That champion is looking healthy a second ago, but wow, that Reaper and those autopulse lasers are making quick work. As soon as they close the distance, the champion is done for. All that's left is a couple of Omens for Seakeal. I don't think he's going to make it. The chances that these 2 Omens are going to be able to kill all these ships are virtually 0. They're good ships, but they're not that good. It did manage to take an Afflictor on the way out. I guess we'll have to look at the scorecard to see if, once again, this is a very one-sided battle, or if it was a little bit closer than Seakeal's fleet usually manages. And we can see both Omens died at about the same time. Yes, this was the first match of Seakeal's that was actually close. But regardless, he gets eliminated from the tournament, and Yuran hangs on for dear life. Up next, we've got RamenXD versus Pixicode.
Round 1, fight!
And this is a very heavy Glimmer and Hyperion fleet with a lot of safety overrides going up against ships that are completely unsupported. They have no frigates, they've only got the Thunders from that Moor to rely on, but luckily for these Onslaught pilots, they've got triple Storm Needler, which as far as loadouts go, that's about the best you can hope for when it comes to anti-frigate technology. I believe they've even got machine guns on the rear end, heavy machine guns to make up for the lack of Storm Needler coverage. So they pretty much got 360 degrees of kinetic damage, in addition to sabos. If I had to guess, it seems like Pixie was expecting there to be a lot of heavily shielded frigates, because she's got that full 360 degree coverage, she's got those Omni shields, and she's very heavily specialized in anti-shield damage. Yes, she does have a few heavy maulers for anti-armor, but not a whole lot. In this case, it does seem to be paying off for her. When there's no onslaught to support the swarm, it looks like her onslaughts can actually hold their own. Unlike earlier when they were taken out by the swarm, yes, but that swarm had an onslaught as a nice big hammer to just break hers with the Reapers to force an overload. In this case, while there are dragon fires on those Hyperions, they're not really using them to try and trick the Onslaught pilots into overloading. And instead, they are killing the Mora in this case. Let's see if it'll actually survive this one. Wow, that Onslaught is shooting the back of that Mora. That's a little bit of friendly fire right there. And the Mora does go down. And you can see the Storm Needler is just absolutely decimating those shields. And the Thunders are still hanging around for a little bit longer, even though the Mora is gone. Although I would expect them to try and leave the battlefield very soon. The Storm Needlers rip through that one. This Hyperion is trying to make something happen against this Onslaught, but the Omni Shields are not letting it happen. It's able to point its shields backwards, and the machine guns are continuing to apply pressure, even though it's outside of the Storm Needler arc. If this Hyperion is all that's left for Ramen, I don't think he's got a chance. Yeah, the Sabos, there it is. Pixicode takes the first round.
Round 2, fight!
Well, it looks like this loadout has done its job. Let's see if RamenXD is able to do any better this time. That's a lot of Hyperions all focusing in on that one Onslaught. They did actually manage to get some through past the shield. It's looking like a box of pizza right now with all that orange. And it overloads because it sees the Dragonfire coming, and it actually does go down. The other Onslaught is still very specialized against this type of fleet, so whether or not it can hold after it lost the other one due to a little bit of bad luck there, or maybe I shouldn't call it bad luck, maybe that's downplaying the amount of skill that RamenXD had put into designing his fleet, because you can't knock a safety override fleet full of frigates. The second you underestimate them, the second you're going to get ripped apart. Once again, the Omni Shield and the machine guns covering the rear end for that Onslaught. It's not vulnerable at the back end the way you would normally expect. It takes out another frigate, but it's still being swarmed. It's lost a lot of its hull. The EMP damage is getting through, but I believe Pixie has... Ooh, that's an overload. That's no good. It takes out another one with its death explosion, but got about half.
Final round. Fight!
As I was saying, I believe she has S-modded repair units, so she can fight through the EMP damage, but it was not enough. RamenXD actually did manage to take round 2 after losing round 1, meaning that this one could really be anyone's game. It all depends, it seems, on getting the onslaught to overload. Battlefield is quiet. That glimmer overloads, but it does manage to slip away, out of range. That one doesn't, though. Another Hyperion getting right behind that onslaught on the bottom right, but the Omni Shield not letting it do any serious damage. Stormneedlers have burned through another one. The Thunders and the Stormneedlers applying a lot of shield pressure. The Sabers overload, and the Stormneedler finishes the job. This time the Onslaught chose not to overload. It chose to drop its shield and actually tank the Dragonfire on its armor. And it did take a lot of damage for that, but not overloading is probably the right call. Capital ships have a minimum overload time that is much longer than any other class, meaning that even if they take a little bit of damage on that overloading shot, they're going to be down for a significant amount of time. Let's see if she's able to convert that Mora kill let's see if Ramen is able to convert the kill on the Mora into a win. The two onslaughts are still intact, although one of them has taken a significant amount of damage. Here comes another Dragonfire. Here comes another Dragonfire. There's two Hyperions, there's the Brawler. That one goes down. The Stormneedlers are applying way too much DPS, and the shields just aren't able to hold. So it looks like there's only a couple of frigates left. They're not going to get away with this one. It looks like Pixicode is taking this one, and the Hyperion is all that's left. The Sabos are going to blast it to pieces like a damn shotgun to the face. Pixicode moves on to the next round, and RamenXD is eliminated from the tournament. And that's the end of part 1. Thank you all for watching. If you want to see the next part, be sure to subscribe to Mr. G Gaming. And if you want to see more of me, you can find me at Big Brain Energy. That'll be all for now. Peace.